My girlfriend said, "Babe, get up. You're embarrassing me." I replied, "You're right. I'm done." Then I took the ring, paid my share, walked out, called a 24-hour locksmith, packed her stuff into bags, blocked her number, and I just waited for the late-night knock she didn't see coming. Welcome back to Family Tales. She could do so much better than you. As you listen, ask yourself what you would do if the person you love stayed quiet while someone humiliated you in public. Her mother sighed after I proposed. My girlfriend just giggled and nodded. I looked at both of them and said, "You're right." Then I took the ring back, walked out of the restaurant and changed the locks that night. The next day, she came home to her boxes outside and a note that said, "Go do better." I used to think of my relationship with Chloe like a startup. You invest early. You keep pushing through the losses. You work yourself into the ground because you believe the payoff is coming. The payoff I wanted wasn't money. It was basic respect. It was a real partnership. Instead, I was the safe option. That's what her mother, Linda, called me the first time we met. She didn't whisper it. She said it while sipping a glass of wine I paid for in a house I was paying the mortgage on. "Chloe needs stability," Linda said, looking me up and down like I was a used car. "You're very grounded, Mark. You're safe. Every woman needs a safe place to land after she's had her fun." At the time, I smiled like an idiot. I was 28, making good money in logistics management, and I owned my own home. I thought safe meant marriage material. It didn't. Safe was code for you'll pay and you won't complain. This was the first red flag, and I tried to turn it into a compliment. For 3 years, I funded the Chloe project. I paid off her $12,000 credit card debt because it was stressing her out and blocking her creativity. I covered the lease on her car because she needed a certain brand to look professional for her freelance social media work. Her job, from what I could tell, mostly cost us money. And the real third wheel in our relationship wasn't another man. It was Linda. Linda was bitter, freshly divorced, and treated relationships like leverage. She married a wealthy man, divorced him, burned through the settlement, and then tried to live out her high society fantasy through Chloe. And Chloe was terrified of her. If Linda said the sky was green, Chloe would ask what shade. The warning signs were everywhere, but I kept telling myself they were temporary. Stress, family stuff, a phase. A month before the proposal, I came home exhausted after a 12-hour shift. Chloe and Linda were in my living room surrounded by shopping bags from high-end boutiques. "Oh, look," Linda said without glancing up, draping a silk scarf around her neck. "The worker bee is home." "Hey, babe," Chloe said. She didn't stand up. "Mom's car is in the shop, so I told her she could stay for dinner." Linda waved a hand like she was dismissing a waiter. "Oh, and we put the shopping on your Amex. Your card was acting weird." Acting weird, meaning it declined. "How much?" I asked, setting my keys down. Linda's eyes narrowed. "Don't be so transactional, Mark. It's unbecoming." Then she looked at Chloe like she was coaching her. "A man should want his woman to look her best. You dress so drab. You don't want Chloe looking like she belongs in your tax bracket, do you?" I looked at Chloe. I waited for her to say, "Stop it, Mom." I waited for her to defend me in my own house. Chloe adjusted the scarf on her mother's neck and said, "Mom's right, Mark. You could be a little more generous with the attitude. We're trying to have a girl's day." That's the moment you learn what role you've been assigned, even if nobody says it out loud. I swallowed it. I told myself once I proposed, once we were engaged, the dynamic would change. I pictured myself as the husband, the one taken seriously, and Linda fading into the background. I was wrong. I decided to propose on Chloe's 27th birthday. I went all in. I bought a ring that cost more than my first car, platinum band, diamond big enough to need insurance. It was a stretch, but I wanted to silence Linda's voice in my head. I wanted a ring that said I wasn't just safe. I booked a table at Le Jardin, the most pretentious French restaurant in the city. Suit required. Reservations months out. The night of the dinner, the ring box felt like it was burning a hole in my jacket pocket. I pulled up to the restaurant and stepped out to hand the keys to the valet, and I saw Chloe standing there. She wasn't alone. Linda stood beside her, dressed in a gown that was almost flashier than Chloe's. Surprise, Chloe said, laughing like this was cute. Mom was feeling lonely tonight. I couldn't leave her at home with a microwave dinner on my birthday. I stared at her. Chloe, this was supposed to be a romantic dinner, just us. Linda stepped forward and patted my cheek with her manicured hand. Relax, Mark, don't be so possessive. You'll have her for the rest of your boring life. Let me have a night. I looked at Chloe again. She gave me that pleading puppy dog look she used whenever she spent too much money or broke a promise. Please, Mark, she said softly. Don't ruin the vibe. Mom's excited. Fine, I said fine. Sometimes you don't notice you're being tested until you realize you've already lost. Dinner was a disaster from the start. Linda complained about the table. She sent back a $200 bottle of wine because she claimed it was corked. It wasn't. She dominated every conversation, talking about her ex-husband's new girlfriend, calling her tacky, and then talking about how Chloe was destined for great things. I sat there sipping water, listening to them plan a future I was paying for but wasn't invited into. Then dessert arrived. That was my cue. I'd arranged for champagne. I took a breath and reached into my pocket. My hand shook a little. Chloe, I said. The chatter stopped. Chloe's eyes widened. She knew. We've been together 3 years, I began. You're the most important person in my life. I want to build a future with you. A real future. I stood up, pulled out the velvet box, and went down on one knee on that marble floor. The restaurant went quiet. A few tables nearby turned to watch. I opened the box. The diamond caught the chandelier light. Chloe, I said, looking up at her, will you marry me? For a few seconds, everything was still. Chloe looked at the ring. A smile started to form. For a split second, I thought this was it. Then a loud, heavy sigh cut through the silence. Linda leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, staring at the ring with boredom and pity. Really, Linda said, loud enough for people to hear. Now here, I froze. Linda, please. I'm just being honest, she said, turning to Chloe like I wasn't even there. Honey, look at him, look at this. She gestured at me like I was a bad outfit. Is this really the finish line for you? She asked. You're 27. You're in your prime. Then she delivered it like she was doing her daughter a favor. You could do so much better than this. You need a man who matches your fire, Chloe, not a man who balances your checkbook. The humiliation hit me like cold water. I stayed on one knee and looked at Chloe. This was the moment. All she had to do was say, stop. All she had to do was choose me. Chloe looked at her mother, then at the ring. Then at me, and she giggled, not nervous, not shocked. A small, conspiratorial giggle like they were sharing an inside joke. Mom, stop, Chloe said with a grin. You're so bad. She didn't say yes. She didn't tell her mother to shut up. She turned back to me, cheeks red. Not embarrassed by her mother's cruelty, embarrassed by me. Babe, she whispered harshly, get up. You're embarrassing me. Mom's right. Maybe we shouldn't rush this. We aren't really there yet, are we? Then she said the part that told me everything. Let's talk about your 5-year plan before we do anything official. She looked at Linda for approval. Linda raised her glass like she'd won. Something inside me shut off. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. When someone shows you who they are, the hard part is believing them the first time. I stood up and snapped the ring box shut. You're right, I said. Chloe blinked. What? I looked at Linda, calm voice, steady. You are absolutely right, Linda. She can do better. I slipped the ring into my pocket. Mark, don't be dramatic, Chloe said, rolling her eyes. Sit down. Let's just order dessert. No, I said. I think I'm done. I pulled out my wallet, took out 3 $20 bills, enough to cover my appetizers and the water I drank. I placed the cash on the white tablecloth. That covers me, I said. Enjoy the evening. Happy birthday, Chloe. Then I walked away. Behind me, I heard Chloe call my name. Annoyed, not scared, like I was a kid acting up, and I heard Linda say, let him go. He's trying to manipulate you. He'll be begging by tomorrow. I stepped into the cool night air and didn't even go straight to the valet. I walked a block just to breathe. It was 8:15 p.m. I knew their pattern. They'd stay. They'd order the most expensive dessert just to punish me. Another bottle of wine to celebrate their control. A lounge after, maybe. They wouldn't be back at my house until after midnight. I had time. I got my car and drove home in silence. I didn't speed. I drove like someone making a clean cut. When I walked into my house, the one I bought 3 years before I met Chloe, I didn't sit down and fall apart. I went to the garage and grabbed heavy-duty trash bags. Bathroom first. Her lotions, 7 hair tools, makeup that stained the counter, into the bags. Bedroom next. Clothes, shoes. That vision board she made me hang up with pictures of yachts and mansions, but no pictures of us. Into the bags. I didn't wrap anything. I didn't organize. If it broke, it broke. I worked for 2 hours straight and dragged 12 bags onto the front porch, lined them up neatly. Then I went to the guest room. Linda's overnight bag was there from the last time she stayed. I threw it on top. At 1:30 p.m., I called a 24-hour locksmith. "I need my locks rekeyed," I told the dispatcher. "Emergency service, I'll pay extra." The locksmith arrived fast. Burly guy named Mike. He looked at the trash bags, then at me. "Bad night?" he asked. "The worst," I said, "or maybe the best, I haven't decided yet." While he worked, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a note. I went through a few drafts because I wanted to write a whole list. Every dollar. Every insult. Every time I swallowed my pride. Then I heard Linda's voice in my head. "He'll be begging. He's manipulating you. Any emotion I showed would feed them." So I wrote 3 words on a piece of cardboard from one of Chloe's shoe boxes. "Go do better." Mike finished the locks and handed me new keys. "You the owner?" he asked. "Deed is in my name only," I said. "She was a guest." Mike nodded at the bags. "Good luck, brother." I taped the note to the center bag, turned off the porch light. Went inside and locked the deadbolt. The heavy thud of that lock felt better than the ring ever did. My phone started buzzing around midnight. "Chloe, missed call, then a text. You are being so childish. Come pick us up." Mom's car is still in the shop and Ubers are surging. I stared at the screen. The old me would have apologized. The old me would have driven back, head down, trying to fix something I didn't break. I blocked her number. Then I blocked Linda. Then I blocked Chloe's sister, then her best friend. For the first time in 3 years, the air in my house felt clean. At 2:00 a.m., I woke up to pounding on the front door and screaming. "Mark, open this door," Chloe yelled. "My stuff is outside. You can't do this." And Linda's voice, sharp and shrill behind her. "I told you he's psychotic. Call the police." I lay on the couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to them rage against solid oak and a brand new deadbolt. I didn't move, I didn't speak. Eventually the pounding stopped, a car door slammed. Probably a very expensive Uber. Silence returned, and I slept. The next morning the sunrise looked sharper than I remembered. The house was quiet. No reality TV, no passive-aggressive comments about how I chewed my toast. Just peace. I checked my security camera footage while I made coffee. The 2:15 a.m. clip was almost funny. Chloe and Linda stood on my porch surrounded by trash bags, looking shocked, like 2 people who finally realized the rules had changed. Chloe was crying hard. Linda was pointing at the door, screaming. Then they loaded the bags into an Uber XL and disappeared. I didn't feel guilt. I felt like I'd removed something unhealthy from my life and stitched the wound shut. I went to work early. I told HR I had a change in domestic status and removed Chloe from my emergency contacts. I called my bank and canceled the extra card I'd given her for groceries, which usually meant Sephora. At 1:00 a.m., the receptionist called my desk. "Mark, there's a very upset young woman in the lobby. She says she's your fiancé. She doesn't have a badge." "I don't have a fiancé," I said calmly. "If she doesn't leave, call security." "She's crying. She's making a scene." "Then she's trespassing," I said. "Call security." 10 minutes later, I saw security escorting Chloe out through the front windows. Same dress from last night, makeup smeared, eyes searching for me. I didn't look down, I kept typing. That was the last time I saw her for 6 months. I didn't just break up with her, I erased her, deleted every photo, threw out furniture she picked, repainted the living room a dark navy. Started going to the gym, not for revenge, but because I finally had time and money to invest in myself. The fallout for them, from what I heard, was ugly. Chloe had nowhere to go. She'd burned bridges to move in with me and had no savings for a new place. So she moved in with Linda. Linda's condo was small, cluttered, and filled with negativity. And when they weren't playing mother and daughter in public, they were just two adults trapped together. Linda charged Chloe rent. Criticized her weight, her job, and her failure to lock me down. Without my money, Chloe's lifestyle collapsed. I stopped paying the lease on her luxury car. The leasing company repossessed it 3 weeks later. Then the real karma hit. About 3 months after the breakup, I ran into Sarah, one of Chloe's old friends, at a hardware store. She looked surprised. "Mark, wow, you look good." "I feel good," I said, putting a box of screws in my cart. She hesitated, then leaned in. "Did you hear about the upgrade?" I almost laughed. "The what?" "Linda set her up," Sarah whispered. "She said Chloe needed a high-value man. She set her up with this guy named Julian, said he was a crypto investor." I nodded slowly. "Let me guess." Sarah's face tightened. "He was a scammer. A real con artist, dated Chloe for 6 weeks, convinced her to take out a personal loan to invest in his new coin, then vanished. $15,000. She added, almost as an afterthought, "Linda's furious because he used one of her cards too." I felt a cold satisfaction settle in my chest. "That's unfortunate," I said. "She's in a bad place," Sarah said quietly. "She's working at a diner now. Linda's threatening to kick her out because she can't pay rent." I nodded once. "She wanted better. Sometimes better is a steep learning curve." Then I paid for my screws and left. 6 months after the breakup, I was a different person. My savings were healthy. My skin cleared up. My life was calm. I was dating a woman named Alina, a pediatrician I met at a running club. Alina drove a beat-up Toyota, split the bill on our first date without making a big deal about it, and hated drama. It was the easiest relationship I'd ever had. I hadn't thought about Chloe in weeks when I got invited to a mutual friend's wedding. Someone from college who, for reasons I'll never understand, stayed friends with Chloe too. I almost skipped it. Then I looked in the mirror adjusting my tie and thought, why should I hide? I brought Alina. We were laughing, holding hands, drinking champagne, and during cocktail hour I saw Chloe near the bar. She looked older, hair dull, dress cheap and ill-fitting. She wasn't the center of attention anymore. She was just a guest standing alone, nursing a drink and scanning the room like she was searching for a lifeboat. Then she saw me. Her eyes went from me to Alina and back again. I watched the realization hit her like a punch. Alina squeezed my hand. "Is that her?" "Yeah," I said. "Do you mind giving me a minute?" "I'll get us refills," Alina said, kissing my cheek and walking away. Chloe stepped up and stopped 2 feet away. Up close, she looked tired, dark circles under her eyes. "Mark," she said, voice shaking. "Chloe," I said, polite, professional. "You look amazing," she said, trying to smile. "I heard you got promoted." "I did." "That's great, really." She took a breath and the words rushed out. "Look, Mark, I know I messed up. I let my mom get in my head, but it's been a nightmare. That guy, Julian, he ruined me. I'm living on my mom's couch. She screams at me every day." Her eyes filled with tears. "I miss the peace we had," she said. "I miss us." She reached for my arm. I took a half step back. "I miss feeling safe," she whispered. "You were always my safety. I didn't appreciate it until it was gone. Can we just get coffee? Just talk. Please, I'm drowning." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who giggled while her mother humiliated me. I looked at the woman who treated me like insurance, not a partner. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel the need to list her crimes. I felt done. "No," I said. She blinked. Tears spilled over. "What?" "No coffee, no talking." I checked my watch, not to be rude, but because I wanted to stay calm. "Chloe, you didn't want safety. You wanted status. You made a gamble. You bet you could find someone better than me." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "You lost that bet. You don't get to come back now that you're broke." "But I love you," she sobbed, loud enough that people started to glance over. "You don't love me," I said. "You love that I paid your bills. You love that I took your mother's abuse so you didn't have to." I leaned in slightly and lowered my voice. That night at the restaurant when you laughed, that was the most honest moment of our relationship. You agreed you could do better. I'm honoring your wish. Her face tightened like she wanted to argue, but there was nothing to argue with. Don't insult me by coming back now that you learned better isn't easy, I said. Excuse me. My girlfriend is waiting for me. I walked past her and didn't look back. I found Alina by the bar. She handed me a drink and raised an eyebrow. Everything okay? I glanced across the room. Chloe stood where I left her, wiping her eyes, looking small and defeated. Linda wasn't there to save her. Julian wasn't there to save her. She was finally on her own. Yeah, I said, taking Alina's hand. Everything is perfect. We danced the rest of the night. I never heard from Chloe again. Last I heard, she moved to another state to live with an aunt after Linda finally kicked her out. As for the ring, I returned it the next day. I used the refund as a down payment on a rental property. It brings in about $1,200 a month in profit. That's the only return I ever got from that relationship, and honestly, it was enough. Lesson 1. If someone's family can insult you in public and your partner joins in, you are not building a team. Lesson 2. Being safe is not an insult, but being treated like a wallet is. Lesson 3. Don't confuse tolerance for love. If you swallow disrespect long enough, it becomes the relationship. Lesson 4. The right response to manipulation is not louder emotion. It's clean boundaries and follow through. Lesson 5. People don't get to return for closure when what they really want is rescue. What would you have done if your partner laughed along while their parent tore you down? And do you think walking away that night was cold? Or was it the first real act of self-respect?